Thousands of investors gathered in Shenzhen to protest Ping An Trust. They demanded refunds on their investments. They could be seen crying, shouting, and some were even on the verge of fainting. A Ping An Trust employee condemned the company for shifting all responsibility onto its staff. Among us present today, many are Ping An Trust agents, and I am an agent for life insurance. I ask, who here is in charge of life insurance? Why not admit it? As an employee of Ping An Life Insurance, I sell products to customers through Ping An's channels. Agents present, please stand up and testify for me. I want to ask you, is what I'm saying true? Yes. I ask the leader of life insurance to stand in front of me and take responsibility. Negotiations between investors and Ping An Trust collapsed due to many investors refusing to accept the outcome. In China, the ripple effects of the real estate crisis continue unabated. Whether wealthy or not, there's always a looming risk of losing one's life savings. The footage we just saw shows a crisis unfolding within Ping An Group, a Fortune Global 500 company. Its subsidiary, Ping An Trust, has stopped a total of 7.7 billion yuan from being withdrawn. Many investors have taken to protesting outside the Ping An Trust PA Financial Center. The Chinese government deployed special forces to quell the unrest. Despite the efforts of many investors to seek recourse, it's unlikely they will recover their investments. This even signals impending trust defaults across China's financial market. Before the Ping An Trust debacle, other trusts like Cedar Trust and Sichuan Trust had already faced similar crises, indicating a broader trend of trust defaults. According to media reports, Ping An Trust issued a statement on April 10th explaining that its 615 collective fund trust plan faced delays due to substantial losses incurred by its invested projects, rendering both principal and interest unrecoverable. The project in question, Zhenghua Fu in Xiamen, by China Zhengrong Real Estate, comprised 1,029 residential units. Despite opening sales at the end of 2021, only 20% of the units were sold over the past 2.5 years, leading directly to the collapse of Ping An Trust. The plight of Ping An Trust mirrors that of many other trusts in China. Once thriving, many are now mired in debt crises, primarily due to their heavy investments in the stagnant real estate sector. Many Chinese trusts initially offered high expected returns to attract funds. Many invested in real estate. Despite government efforts to curb capital inflows into real estate, practical regulation was lacking. According to the Trust Industry Association, China's trust assets total 21.7 trillion yuan, with 1.05 trillion yuan allocated to real estate, even after a recent decline in scale. While not a significant proportion, the impact is substantial. In the past, upon maturation of a trust, the principal and income must be distributed to investors. However, since the introduction of China's asset management regulations in April 2018, rigid redemption requirements were relaxed. As of the end of 2021, all trusts must adhere to a non-rigid redemption policy, meaning losses incurred by projects are borne by investors themselves, rather than the trust companies or their parent groups. With the real estate market in such dire straits, property stagnant and funds difficult to recoup, trust products backed by real estate assets are increasingly prone to default. Today, it's Ping An Trust. Tomorrow, it could be another company. While the immediate losers appear to be China's wealthy, the economic ramifications are far-reaching, affecting various industries, enterprises, and individuals. Apart from trust defaults, there's a constant stream of news regarding the collapse of major real estate corporations, with the liquidation of Shima Group being one of the most closely watched events.
Does real estate still have a future? Just yesterday, another $100 billion real estate company faced bankruptcy. China Construction Bank filed with the Hong Kong High Court to liquidate Shima Group, involving an amount of 1.58 billion Hong Kong dollars. As soon as the news came out, Shima Group's stock plummeted 15%. It is the fourth largest real estate company after Evergrande, Country Garden, and Sunac. Before Shima, 16 real estate companies had filed for bankruptcy in Hong Kong by creditors. And these real estate companies facing bankruptcy will, without exception, try their best to cancel the application, delay the application, and find opportunities to make a comeback. But the game is over, and 2024 is really a year to witness history. China Construction Bank requested Shima Group to be liquidated. Do you know the hidden story behind this matter? Bankruptcy and liquidation means life and death. It means a full breakup and loss of faith. They requested to completely liquidate the company. But in fact, China Construction Bank knows that even if Shimao goes bankrupt and liquidates, they will not get much money back, so a big bank will not go to this step unless it is a last resort. Why did a bank as big as China Construction Bank do this? On the surface, it was caused by Shimao Group's debt of about 1.58 billion Hong Kong dollars. But there are actually two reasons behind this.
He dissects two primary reasons behind the urgency of China Construction Bank's move to force the bankruptcy and liquidation of Shimao Group. Firstly, CCB is likely deeply entangled in Shimao Group's debt, far beyond the reported 1.58 billion Hong Kong dollars. There may be numerous high-risk loans involved, including under-collateralized or even unsecured loans, which CCB is unlikely to recover. But why couldn't CCB afford to give Shimao Group more time to repay its debts gradually? The answer lies in Shimao's financial statements. In 2023, Shima suffered a staggering operating loss of 13.3 billion yuan, a 476% increase year-on-year. The company's total borrowings amounted to 264 billion yuan, with 199.4 billion yuan due for repayment within a year, while its cash and equivalents totaled only 21.4 billion yuan. Essentially, Shimao's entire asset base, when converted to cash, only amounts to 21.4 billion yuan. With debts exceeding 190 billion yuan annually and ongoing losses, it's simply unsustainable. Allowing Shimao to operate for another year would result in over 10 billion yuan in additional losses, and CCB, like other creditors, wouldn't risk further losses. Therefore, China Construction Bank was anxious to force Shimao into bankruptcy and liquidate, and get what they can. If the situation continues, even the remaining assets of more than 20 billion yuan would be lost. The second reason is more profound, reflecting a shift in the Chinese Communist Party, CCP's, policies. Banks will no longer adopt the lenient approach seen during the Evergrande crisis, nor will they continue propping up these real estate enterprises. There will be no more support measures like creating whitelists or extending loans indefinitely. The treatment of real estate company defaults is entering a new era, where banks, like any other creditor, will cut ties swiftly to minimize losses. At the core, it's a matter of banks and the state lacking the funds to sustain these heavily indebted real estate firms. Many real estate companies are now teetering on the brink. What seems like a major real estate crisis is actually a massive cleansing of China's real estate industry. The only companies likely to withstand this turmoil are those backed by state-owned enterprises. Some people say that it's not just the cooling of the real estate market, but rather a return to normalcy, where houses serve their intended purpose, to be lived in rather than being speculative assets. However, amidst this wave of real estate and trust defaults, a subtle signal emerges. The CCP government may indeed be running out of funds. The first sign of the CCP's financial strain manifests in the severe cash shortage within the real estate industry. Recent financial reports from Chinese real estate firms reveal the extent of the crisis. Leading Beijing-based state-owned real estate giant Vanke reported a 46.4% drop in net profits last year, prompting international credit rating agency Moody's to downgrade its rating from investment grade to junk. Furthermore, in addition to the previously mentioned firms such as Country Garden, Evergrande, and Shimao, other major Chinese real estate companies also reported staggering losses. For instance, Sino-Ocean Group reported a net loss exceeding 21 billion yuan for the year. In August last year, Sino-Ocean Group announced a default on its denominated bonds. Similarly, at the end of March this year, R&F Group announced a net loss of 20.1 billion yuan. Sunac China reported a net loss exceeding 7.9 billion yuan, while Sci-Fi reported a net loss exceeding 8.9 billion yuan. Overseas Chinese Town Group reported a net loss exceeding 6.4 billion yuan, while Genro reported a net loss exceeding 13.8 billion yuan. Finally, Zhongjun Group reported a net loss exceeding 900 million yuan. These astronomical figures underscore the magnitude of the crisis. If no one steps in to shoulder these debts, they will become insurmountable black holes. Despite optimistic rhetoric from CCP officials, the reality suggests a different story. During the CCP Development High-Level Forum, Pan Gongsheng, the governor of the People's Bank of China, PBOC, mentioned some positive signals from the real estate market, claiming a solid foundation for long-term healthy and stable development. However, experts argue that Beijing's efforts have not genuinely addressed the real estate debt crisis. Instead, they've merely obscured or shifted the debt burden. Take the handling of Shimao Group, for example. Although banks have ceased adhering to the central government's whitelisting and lend as much as you can policies and are aggressively pursuing debt repayment, the true extent of the debt hole remains unaddressed. Shima Group alone carries debts exceeding 200 billion yuan, and the cumulative debts of all indebted real estate firms are undoubtedly staggering. Chen Songyu, director of the New Economic Policy Research Center at Donghua University in Taiwan, believes that the actual situation in China may not be as ideal as CCP officials portray. From Evergrande and Country Garden to now Vanke, the basic conditions of these firms are deteriorating. Furthermore, several small and medium-sized developers are also experiencing defaults. While Chinese banks have assumed some local government debt, they've essentially transferred these non-performing assets to the banks. Although these debts may not be classified as bad loans, they still deplete the bank's funds. Chen Songyu said, "This will affect the bank's lending capacity and significantly dent their profitability, reflected in China's banks having a net interest margin of only around 1.5%. Typically, a margin below 2% indicates weakened profitability, impacting the healthy operation and credit ratings of banks. Therefore, the efforts made by the CCP during this time are not genuinely addressing the debts of real estate developers, but rather concealing or transferring the actual debts. These unalleviated debts continue to erode the nation's savings, exacerbating the government's financial woes. The second indication of the financial strain is China's debt nearing 3 times its GDP. According to Gongsheng Li, a researcher at a Chinese financial think tank, several financial issues point to China's financial strain by 2024, with debt being a primary concern. Since the end of 2022, following the end of COVID-19 control measures, various economic problems have surfaced, leading to an unprecedented debt crisis in China, combining debts from the central government, local governments, and the real estate sector. According to a Goldman Sachs estimate, in April 2023, including government borrowings, local government financing platforms, and debts from national policy banks, China's government debt had surged to 156 trillion yuan by 2022. The latest report from China's National Institute of Finance and Development revealed that by 2023, China's debt, including household, business, and government, had soared to 287.8% of GDP, a 13.5% increase from 2022, reaching a historic high. Gongsheng Li concluded that these are only the visible numbers, and there are many unseen figures such as capital black holes, bank black holes, real estate black holes, and financial elites black holes. Hence, the debts that the CCP government currently faces are likely much larger than what they publicly disclose. Taiwanese economist Wu Jialong expressed to Epoch Times that finding funding sources is essential to solving the problem. However, it's doubtful that the CCP can come up with the necessary funds. With such a massive central financial crisis and budget deficit, along with several crises erupting simultaneously, resolving them all at once seems nearly impossible. The third indicator of financial strain is the suspension of major infrastructure projects in 12 provinces. Gongsheng Li said, "China's financial situation is so dire that roughly 1/3 of its provinces, municipalities, and autonomous regions have halted large projects. By the end of 2023, the CCP State Council issued a requirement that before 2024, apart from projects guaranteeing basic livelihoods, such as water, electricity, and heating, no new large-scale infrastructure projects should commence at the provincial or municipal level." Among the provinces and municipalities named were Liaoning, Jilin, Yunnan, Tianjin, and Chongqing. The suspended projects include highways, airport renovations and expansions, urban railways, etc. Authorities instructed these regions to make every effort to reduce debt risks to moderate levels. According to estimates by Goldman Sachs, local governments in China have accumulated debts as high as 94 trillion yuan. The fourth indicator of financial strain is the issuance of 50-year government bonds. On March 24th, the Chinese Ministry of Finance announced the issuance of the 46th National Bond for 2023. The announcement stated plans to issue 230 billion yuan worth of ultra-long-term bonds with a maturity of 50 years and a coupon rate of 3.27%. During the recent 2 sessions of the CCP, the government work report also mentioned plans to issue ultra-long-term special bonds for several consecutive years. China's issuance of 50-year ultra-long-term bonds isn't substantial, only around 300 billion yuan. However, it's still alarming because ultra-long-term bonds are like manna from heaven. To put it simply, a 30-year-old receiving a 50-year bond won't have to be repaid until they're 80. This is the world's first 50-year ultra-long-term bond. Professor Sungguo Chiang from the Department of International Affairs and Business at Nanhua University in Taiwan also noted that if China's economy continues to decline in the future, this ultra-long-term special bond policy will essentially become a policy of passing on debts to future generations. The final indicator of financial strain is that M2 has approached 300 trillion yuan. According to the latest financial data, as of the end of February, China's broad money supply, M2, had reached 299.56 trillion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 8.7%. This essentially announces to the world that China's financial strain is substantial. M2 data is typically used to measure the money supply, with a higher rate of credit money issuance leading to a larger scale of broad debt. When the growth rate of credit money issuance consistently exceeds that of GDP, debt risks gradually increase. Currently, China's M2 is 2.3 times its GDP, while in the United States, M2 is only 0.76 times GDP. The acceleration of China's broad money supply, M2, is evident. From the end of 2000, M2 was only 13 trillion yuan, reaching 100 trillion yuan in March 2013, a span of 12 years. 7 years later, in January 2022, it surpassed 200 trillion yuan. 4 years later, by February 2024, it approached 300 trillion yuan. Shen Gongli stated, China has expanded its footprint too much, with money being poured into every aspect. Some projects continuously absorb funds. Therefore, China's financial strain is at its historic peak, and monetary issuance has reached its historic pinnacle. In general, starting from 2024, China will enter its most financially strained era.